So good afternoon, everyone. I am sure you are all excited for this afternoon's information-packed session. I'm sure some of you are just, logging in into your Zoom accounts and excited to have this afternoon with all our panelists. We have our panelists from across different markets, from various industries, and I'm sure you are all excited to hear from their experiences, their challenges, their daily grinds, of course, their winning moments, which is all about this webinar, and definitely how they are moving forward and how you can also get some tips from these winners. So they are as I said, they're seasoned award winners with a long list of accolades in their belts. So let me introduce our panel for this afternoon. Let's head over to our first panelists. As Insights Director, she runs the Media Research Division of the ANZ region here at Isentia. The Insights Division at Isentia, as most of you may know, is responsible, for producing bespoke media and reputation research. She's also the chair of the Global Young Leaders Group for AMEC, the International Association for the Measurement and Evaluation of Communication. She has more than 15 years in the field of communications research and is a passionate advocate for measurement and how the right evaluation is critical to business success. A little known fact for our panelists, she's an avid esports fan and can
Ooh.
often be, found watching competitive tournaments for Call of Duty, Warzone, and Fortnite. So, reach out to her if you are a player of these games. And it's a really fascinating industry. Please join me in welcoming Nairi Crawford. Nairi?
Kia ora, everyone.
All right. So, our second panelist is the head of corporate community and public engagement at Plus Malaysia, the largest highway concessionaires or build, operate, transfer operator company in Malaysia. It's a member of the UEM Group. The company is also the largest listed toll expressway operator in Southeast Asia and eighth largest in the world. Our panelist claims to lead a very boring life, but it's, a daily grind for one issue after another. And that's also the reason why he will be joining us later as he's still fighting fires for a crisis in Plus Malaysia. Our panelist, Syed Mohammed Idid, says that, in his respite, he has to escape the weekends with his gorgeous wife and children. So he'll be joining us later in the session, and you'll meet him and you will catch his insights later. Our next panelist is definitely a risk taker, in undertaking new product and service breakthroughs as a personal motivation for the past 2 decades of her working career. An interesting trivia is that she launched a telco agnostic mobile directory service way back in 2009 when, mobile content in the form of mobile applications was definitely just in its fancy stage. And that initiative, subsequently won an award. As the director of programs and marketing communications at Scape Singapore, a non-profit organization with its mission and vision rooted in supporting the youth, talent, and leadership development in the locals from the age of 15 to 35 in Singapore. They aim to launch first of its kind events that would gain positive resonance amongst the youth. Let's welcome Ms. Shirley Tan.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Rochelle, for the introduction.
Okay. Welcome, Shirley. Our last panelist is someone I am very proud to introduce. He is the Senior Vice President for Marketing for SM Supermalls, the biggest developer of world-class shopping centers with over 74 shopping malls to date in the Philippines and 7 in China. There's an average, quick trivia for our audiences who are not from the Philippines, there's an average foot traffic of 3.5 million daily and over 5,000 tenant partners in SM Supermalls, and they provide family fun experiences that make each day a better day for all Filipinos. He is a true blue Athenian, a tennis enthusiast, an advocate of measuring their performance. He heads a team in SM Supermalls with a long list of local and international awards under his belt. He is a true family man, ladies and gentlemen, better known to us in Isentia as Sir John John, Mr. Joaquin San Agustin. Sir John?
Thank you very much, Rachel. And thank you to everyone today. I'm really happy to be here.
Okay, so I'm Lady Ochel Espinosa, and I will be your moderator this afternoon in behalf of the head of Insights in Asia, Prashant Saxena. I'm the regional insights manager for emerging markets in Southeast Asia in Isentia. And probably one interesting fact about me is that for someone who likes to watch cooking shows, I could not even boil an egg, even if my life depends on it. Right? So let's get the show on the road. Measurements. Let's begin with this particular issue, or a discussion point. Media measurement is an investment, right? So I'm sure organizations will agree that media measurement is an investment. And in any business effort, you'll want to know if this investment is actually worth our time, our money, our effort that we put into it. So can our panelists perhaps share the best practices on how media measurement in particular is contributing to your business goals? Maybe Shirley, you want to start?
Sure, sure. Maybe allow me to just share a bit about Scape. Yeah, the organization that I'm in now is actually a not-for-profit youth organization with our mission to motivate and empower our youth to realize their potential. So how we perform our role is largely to curate programs, right? And programs that really need to resonate with our youth in pursuing their aspiration. Hence, it's really very important for us to be embarking on certain study, like what we call the youth study, that will provide us good insight on what our youth are interested or concerned with. So for the last 2 years, I have the opportunity to work with Prashant and the team, the Insight team here in Singapore, to conduct this two sentiment analysis study, which really help us because with the insights, we are able to curate the right programs. And with the right programs, we obviously will be able to know that these are areas that the youth are interested with. And we know for a fact that their interests are ever changing, are dynamically changing. So to me, what would be the best practices that we really have to take note broadly will be three areas, and why we actually embark on this study as opposed to a traditional survey. First and foremost, I think we need to be current, right? Because as I said, the youth aspiration, the youth interest is ever changing. So if we really embark on a traditional survey, it may be kind of dated by then when we collate all the insights. So for the organic sentiment analysis project that we did with Prashant team, it actually gave us very current findings. And with these current findings, obviously it helped us to come up with actionable steps that we could undertake. The second practice that I think is really important for us is this is actually very accurate. As far as the last 2 years, when we look at the findings and when we actually launch programs and how the kind of resonance we get from our youth, obviously the findings are accurate. Why? Because it's organic. It is unbiased as compared to, if you conduct a traditional survey, you will get the surveyor to probably ask certain question and solicify certain answer that they want to hear from the participant, right? So that part about the accuracy is important. And lastly, which I mentioned, is the whole insight that we can take tactical plans. It's not something that is too long term. It's something that we can act on for the next half a year. And we indeed actually, with the good insights that we obtained from the whole study, we actually came out with some first of its kind program. So later on, I'll share a bit more on some of this very interesting program for our youth.
Thank you, Shirley. So you mentioned organic, current, tactical, and actionable. And I'm sure, Sir John, these are terms that are the SM Supermalls teams are always on our toes, especially with the term current. Your thoughts on this one?
Well, maybe allow me to share. Yes, being very current is something that, especially in a very online and digital world already today, in terms of marketing. I think before we went on broadcast, I was mentioning to you that I've been in marketing for over 30 years, and today, the past 5, 10 years, I've really been more into research than I ever have, starting off, especially I started off with a multinational company, the FMCG. Um, if you take a look at how this particular, what is our best practice here at the SM Supermalls, I think when we embarked on the digital marketing campaign 6 years ago, what happened is that we took a look at a different model of how to go about the digital campaign, rather than doing the traditional way of organizing the digital team in terms of categories like dining, shopping, and services. We decided to do it very differently. We did it according to segments of people: family, youth, and the general public segment. Because in a shopping mall, when people enter, what happens is that there are really a million and one things that are available to them, right? And patterns may be there, but you also have those who really just go around the mall and wander and be able to take advantage of things. So rather than be very strict about categories, we wanted to look at it particularly in terms of segments. Now, having done that, the very important thing from then on was really to see how all our communication campaigns through the digital side were going to be measured. Because at the end of the day, without the measurements, you'll never know how you are performing. I think working with Isentia, one of the things that we did that was a breakthrough, at least for the SM Supermalls, was one day I sat down with Ochel, and I asked her, what are the global standards in terms of measurements? And she was saying that, oh, sir, John, you see, what we normally have is reach, engagement, and then we monitor a little bit of sentiments and stuff like that. So, okay, then I go, how do I measure whether people have become more loyal to us? Or as I was reading this book from an author I used to read in college, and I picked up on one of his newer books. He was saying that, with social media already today, actually what happens is people have a voice, right? And with people having a voice, the netizens having a voice, there is an opportunity for you to turn these people not only as people who are loyal to you, but people who can become advocates for you out there, especially if they aggregate in a big manner. So to make a long story short, what we did was I worked with Ochel. Actually, we bled her we bled her particularly to come up with measurements, a research methodology that we use at the SM Supermalls to measure affinity and advocacy, right? So right now, we're able to see how our digital campaigns are able to really either measure or at least see how strong the loyalty and how people are actually advocating for us out there vis-a-vis our competition. So that was one of the things that I think that we went beyond, right? Because if we just stuck to the normal engagement rates, reach, and counting all the likes, it would have been a very super. It would be very. I think there would be more that we could learn if we develop something on our own. Yep.
Thank you, Sir John. And yes, acknowledge the bleeding. But here we are and winning 2 awards for SM Supermalls under our belt. So we're talking about, how media measurements are important for Scape and SM Supermalls. And I'm sure Ngairi, who has all the experiences with different clients also in ANZ, and taking these award-winning measurements. What is your take on, let's say, profiling industry innovation and the best practices? We always hear the term, what's the best practice? And I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts and items to share, not only to our winners here, but also to our audiences listening. So what's into profiling in industry innovation and best practice? Nairi?
I think one of the most important things that we can do is what we're doing now. Awards, while they are wonderful, they let everybody know that research that you do can help make a difference, and it can help you answer a really specific question, and it can help you move your business forward. The absolute best thing that we can keep doing is sharing that and sharing the success of that. Communications measurement can still be quite new to a lot of people. It can still be incredibly bespoke and customized. And the best thing we can do is share when we find great examples of it, when we find really good resources, and when we can share really great experiences. I mean, ultimately, we're all going to get better the more that we know about it. So more webinars, more sharing, more everything.
Yeah, agree on those sharing knowledge sharing sessions, which is also why we are having this webinar. So let me go into the the latest pandemic, COVID-19, and which is why we're having this webinar instead of, let's say, a face-to-face interaction. So have your organizations now adjusted to the way you measure, for example, your performance given the pandemic? If so, again, going back to the best practices you might want to share to the audience is how we're moving forward during this time. Shirley?
Well, I mean, for us, regardless of COVID, really, I mean, COVID-19, because our role as a youth organization, we really need to constantly feel the pulse of our youth, right? So be it, there is a pandemic, even pre-COVID, as I said, the last 2 years, the study that we did, Prashant and team, we definitely see the importance. And like what Sir John said, it's not about how many likes, comments, shares that we managed to garner from our Facebook campaign. It's really about what the youth are saying, right? So that part, it didn't really quite change for us. But of course, again, back to the whole pandemic, and I was just sharing for Singapore, we were into this whole circuit breaker. There was a lockdown. So obviously our social media native, largely the Gen Z and millennia, they are even more active on social media. So for us to ensure that we really, get to know what they are saying, we still continue to monitor. I mean, in terms of like Instagram, there is this direct messaging feature, right? So when we have a post that we put up, we get some direct message from our user, and they're very spontaneous. I mean, youth, they are, so-called very active on social media on a daily. For Singapore, we do know our youth spend about at least averagely 6 to 8 hours a day. So yes, so in terms of the best practices which I just shared, very much still stay relevant regardless of the pandemic. But of course, with the pandemic, we found some pressing concern, which I think just now we talked about, this whole mental health issues that are faced by our youth. So what actually are the issues that they currently face? So that part of getting our insight team to find out a bit more would help us, to come up with a program that would tackle these mental issues in that sense.
Thank you, Shirley. Ngari, just some quick thoughts in the Australia and New Zealand. Have they changed? Have our clients changed, or organizations changed the way they measure given the pandemic?
Yeah, a few differences that we have seen is that there has been a lot more focus on trying to understand the general health and well-being of an audience. So there's been much more conscious measurement of understanding how people are feeling, and whether or not it's actually an appropriate time to communicate at all, because for the last 6 months, for a lot of organizations, it hasn't necessarily been the time to do that. So there's been a lot of focus on understanding that broader audience. Also, the pandemic, I think, has put a beautiful spotlight on internal communications and how companies have responded to their employees in a really difficult time, how people have adapted to working from home. The internal comms isn't always, shouted out as loud as it could be, and this has been such an amazing example to see when companies are doing really well and how that can, play out on social and appear in mainstream media and really, really impact employee engagement.
I agree on that one. I think it's also seen across Southeast Asia, given our clients. So we're talking about awards and adjusting to our measurement performances, measuring our performances in this time. And most of our teams are winning award-winning communication efforts means that we need to have a keen eye on spotting opportunities, even the time of the pandemic. And can you speak on how these opportunities are identified within your organization and why it even matters to the business, Sir John?
Well, in our case, I think one of the things that was, as I mentioned earlier, because we had one of the strictest and actually one of the longest lockdowns, right, in the Philippines. So there was really a lot of, and plus there was an overlay of a lot of fear, particularly with people from going out, to going out. So what we noticed is that all of a sudden we saw a lot of ordering online that was happening because well, Ochel, just to let you know, in the malls prior to pandemic, we were actually bringing in 4.2 million people a day on the average. Okay. And what was happening was then all of a sudden we were seeing that we had to serve them differently. That's how the omni-channel strategy started to kick in a bigger way, right? Because we had to put up delivery services, we had to put up curbsides, personal shoppers, everything. So one thing that happened after that was that obviously taking the cue from what we were seeing outside, how people were now purchasing and buying and behaving. We had to make adjustments as well in our measurements, right? And the good thing that the good thing that we discovered about the model that the SM Supermalls and Icentia jointly made was that it was actually flexible enough to be able to be able to at least get a good measurement or a good grip on how the level of fear was out there. And B, also, we are able now to be able to measure still our affinity, advocacy, and all the rest, right? But now together already with the omni-channel strategy. So whether we serve the customer if they come into the mall or we serve them through a delivery, we will be able to now see how, how that entire thing plays in terms of how loyal and how much our loyal customers talk about us out there.
Thank you very much for that insightful information, Sir John. So we all know that communication efforts, whether we win awards or not, they need budgets, especially if the intention is to enter awards. So how do you think organizations in general prepare for multifaceted explanations of, let's say, how the need is strategically aligned to the business, let's say in stakeholders, the industry, the profession, and community? Anything you'd like to share about this, Ngairi, especially for A&Z clients?
I think the fastest way to unlock budget in an organization is to prove that you're doing something and it works. And ultimately, that's what we're all trying to do. Like we're trying to find the ways that communication directly contributes to those overall business objectives. Sometimes that path's not super clear. Sometimes it's incredibly clear. And being able to engineer a research and a measurement program around that so that you can constantly shout about things that work and things that don't, and where your risk is and where your opportunity is. That's what gets buy-in, especially at an executive level, and that's ultimately what helps unlock more budget and more resources and all of that amazing stuff that helps everybody do more.
Agree. So, Shirley, in Scape, how do you challenge your organizations to these new heights of strategic thinking? We were talking earlier about being current, being, actionable. So, of course, this comes into, it folds into your strategy, and strategic thinking is one of those elements that comes into play. So, how does Scape, for example, strategize while measuring your performance?
Okay, so as we are working with youth talent, and our role, is really to talent develop them, so as to inspire them to pursue their dreams. So it's really critical that we devise a strategy that will help us to achieve a broader outcomes,
Mhm.
outcomes that will help us to achieve a longer term benefits. But of course, yet, I mentioned about, our youth, their interests are ever changing. So our plans need to stay current and relevant, which is the two best practices point that I brought up. So it's really important that we constantly do media measurement, because that part will help us to translate into KPI, like Nigel already mentioned, right? So with the KPI, our team know what they need to achieve for this period of time. So be it a year, be it 2 years, be it 5 years. So this is really in a way it's strategic thinking, but yet staying current, feeling the pulse of the youth, as I mentioned. Yeah.
Agree. And this strategic thinking is the one that wins awards, right?
Oh yeah.
On top on our discussion. So, Sir John, I'll turn this over to you. Strategic thinking and strategy is always what we discuss with SM Supermalls. You might want to, chime in.
Well, well, of course, strategic thinking will always be one of the cornerstones, particularly of a marketing person, right? At the end of the day, it really depends on, it really depends on how good your vision is and how solid that vision is and how, but let me try to answer the question in two ways, First of all, I think innovation, okay? Innovation in the way we measure. As I said, we did the affinity and advocacy model, but all the more now, what makes it exciting actually now is that this pandemic has actually changed behavior. It actually has changed behavior of people so much, at least from where I sit, from the malling point of view. And that being the case, it becomes exciting because then you now have something new to learn in terms of research. Because sometimes research, you know, behavioral changes in research don't really happen as often, right? They really take major revolutions like the digital revolution, or when the web came to be, etc., and social media, right? Those are the things that made a major change. But this time you can see that there is a major change in the way people are behaving, and being able to adjust your research methodology, particularly to become very current and like that. And it's really the reason I say it's exciting, because you get to learn something new, diba? Even at my age, I get to learn something new every day now. No, it may be very tiring, it may be it may be very risky, but at the end of the day, you're learning. Now, when I said that I'd answer it in two ways, also at the end of the day, I've always told all the marketing, my marketing teammates here at the SM Supermalls, is that while things may change, research methodologies may become more sophisticated, at the end of the day, it always goes down to a simple basic rule, right? You'd have to know your customer well, right? At the end of the day, it's second nature. You never answer a marketing question by saying, oh, this is what I think. You always have to answer the question by saying, this is the way the customer behaves, and this is the way what is the customer looking for? Because at the end of the day, the research will help you, particularly to basically answer or be able to deliver on that unmet need, right?
Yeah, so I picked that up from Sir John. Know your customer. In Icentia, we always tell our teams, know your audiences. And it always is applicable to, I think, any organization. So we're talking about audiences and customers. So how do you think should organizations target these audiences in time of the pandemic, specifically to lead to, let's say, choices about of strategy, of tactics, media and channels, and how do you think this is tied to an award-winning initiative? Nairi, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this one is really one of the interesting things about communications research and media measurement particularly, is that organizations can spend a lot of time looking at themselves. What everybody does need to start doing, and I think our panelists are already doing this beautifully, is looking at your audience and not looking at yourself, not having a conversation about yourself to yourself, but really understanding what your audience is thinking right now. And it may not only be your target audience, it may be the wider population in which you operate. It's really important to understand the emotional tone of an audience, what's driving outrage and what's driving celebration, because ultimately that helps you understand where you should be positioning content and how you should move and adapt. So there is this big interesting shift at the moment away from looking at yourself and starting to only look at audiences and the general tone of what's going on.
Yeah. So before I proceed to the next question or the next discussion, our audiences feel free to raise your questions so that during the Q&A we can choose your questions so that our panelists can answer. So we were talking about effective and successful communications, award-winning communications. We've talked about budgets being current, etc. So when we talk about something that's effective and successful, it does not occur until the audience actually receives and understands our messages or communication efforts. I'm sure Sir John will agree. We can push and push for our messages, but if they don't receive it or they don't understand it, the initiative doesn't really succeed per se. So when we understand these message communication efforts, how do you currently analyze your stakeholders? Surely your thoughts, given that your stakeholders are basically the youth, how do you push
Yeah.
for messages?
So for us, prior to COVID-19, we organize programs physically, meaning, we have all the physical events. So one way that we obviously analyze would be the number of youth that sign up and come forth for our programs. And then now that it's COVID, we do, online programs such as webinar. So the youth do sign up via webinar, just like, now this Isentia, I'm seeing like more than 100 over, very impressive. So obviously your program resonates with your stakeholder too. But I think what I want to highlight here is, again, back to the sentiment analysis exercise that we did with Isentia. That was 2019, and we applied that sets of findings for our 2020 work plan. And regardless of, again, as I said, pandemic or not pandemic, the program resonate with our youth. Why? Because we understand their needs. Because we fundamentally and organically know that what they are talking about, what they are concerned with, we apply the right formula to our program. So the only thing that I kudos to my team is we managed to pivot very fast to online. Due to, again, COVID-19, we can't have physical congregation of our youth at our venue. So that is something that we know for sure that our programs are on the right track because of the number of youth that sign up for it. Yeah.
So, Ngari, I'll hand this over to you. When our clients are always using the word message and they want their messages, measured, what are your thoughts on this one?
I always find that interesting. My preference is to consider things as being points of view because everyone's point of view is a little bit different. You have things that you want to communicate to an audience. They're not always, media aren't going to display that in the right way all the time. People aren't going to understand that in the right way all the time. So it's really important to elevate that a little bit higher and think about those broader points of view and how you fit into them, where advocacy is, where detractors are, and taking it above that kind of quite specific messages, which can just be a lot of phrasing.
Yeah. So I agree on that one. It's always interesting when you meet different clients from different organizations and industries, and they have different takes on what a message is, right? So Sir John, this is close to home and close to our heart. How do we push for these messages and make sure that our audiences understand the message we want to get across?
Well, as I said, we have that whole tracking system that we put up, right? I mean, however, Chel, right, I've always told you that it's not only whether we get the message across. That's why we developed the model together, because what is important for us, or what is important actually for me, is how the people act after they understand the message, right? That is to me is more important. That's why, as you can see, it's a we have taken it a step further, so we can really tell whether people are pushing us, right, inviting people to come to us, etc. That's I think the more, and then even more now, right, when there are a lot of limitations out there, you really need as much as possible. And with new services also coming in, we really need as much as possible to see how they will act on the messages that we put forth.
Yeah. Agree, Sir John. So I will take that term actionable. Actionable insights is always what we're trying to push for in Icentia and, serve our organizations. Surely you've mentioned that, working with Prashant and the Singapore team has been very beneficial to Scape. How have you been acting on it during the pandemic? How are the insights actionable from your side?
Oh, very actionable. Yeah. In fact, I think safely I can say we conceive at least three new ideas and transform them into very actionable programs and the kind of resonance that we get, both quantitative and qualitative, because qualitative wise, we talk about, yeah, if you could see from my this virtual backdrop, we just did this year, June, right? So for the current situation here in Singapore, I guess it's also a worldwide thing. Employability is indeed an issue, and we do have graduating youth that are graduating this year. They are very concerned about whether they can get themselves employed. So what we did was I discussed with Prasham and we came out with this idea, but of course based on the findings that we already discovered last year, to know that, yeah, there's a always constant concern amongst our youth when it comes to seeking the right prospect, what would be a good career prospect for them. So that part, we already know the findings. We just need to again pivot to the current context. And with the current context, which is the pandemic, we came out with this, what we call hacking the new normal. Right? Yeah. And this event is not just awesome, but importantly, I think the youth themselves, after the event, they actually, go to their own LinkedIn, start sharing, how much they benefited. They learn all this whole social data analysis from the Icentia team. They get mentored by all the industry veterans, to understand how to come up with a good pitch. Because you see, what we are trying to do here is we are not reaching out to just business faculty students. We actually reach out to diverse background students. So even if, let's say, you're from an engineering course, they actually sign up for this program. Why? Because they just want to stay relevant, just want to understand, this is what we are looking at. This is some of the business case study that we actually empower them to look at all this relevant business issues. And then with the mentors, they help them to, be able to fine tune their ideas, come up with a pitch, presented to C-level, C-suite level, like, Sir John, one of the few judges are that head honcho level, and they were all so impressed by their pitching. So obviously our program definitely resonated. Our program definitely benefited them. And Icentia team and Scape team, we just add one more level just to give them that whole recognition. We give them a certificate, so that with that certificate, they can actually bring it to, their would-be employer, right? To say, hey, I've actually participated in this very meaningful event. I acquired a skill from Icentia. I did a very good pitch. Yeah, and this is the milestone that I've achieved.
Yeah, so for the benefit of our audiences, while we did something called Affinity and Advocacy for SM Supermalls with Scape, we did also something groundbreaking, which is the virtual hackathon, which we did with Scape. So
That's
very
right.
interesting, efforts across our panelists. So we were talking earlier, Shirley was mentioning about being actionable, how it's being done, how to innovate, and how the way to move forward. So I'm sure the award winning sessions or season will not stop only because of the pandemic. There will still be award winning, award giving bodies. We will still give our entries, and we want to join. We want to win. We want to win awards. So how are your award winning communication efforts, let's say, are adapting or responding to these changes, whether it is about, let's say, COVID-19 pandemic or other external and internal changes in general, having that winning mindset in mind. Sir John?
Well, as I said earlier, with really behaviors changing already now, we've really taken a relook. We are relooking the affinity and advocacy model, right? To be able to add us more attributes, particularly to measure
Yes.
things that will make it more current. More often than that is that what we are doing as well, other than the normal tracking we do with Icentia, is that we're actually doing pocket pocket surveys as often as possible now, because you can see that month on month, sometimes, things change, right? Intensities change right now. So we really have to be able to really adapt the measurement side. Now more than ever, it is important to really measure things, because you're really seeing such diverse swing, very very big swings, particularly in terms of customer behavior.
Yeah. So, Nairi, your thoughts on, considering all these external and internal changes in organizations and how we're gonna still win awards given the situation. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think ultimately doing good work and being able to prove it is always going to be really, really effective. And I think one of the the biggest trends that I've seen clients have to adapt to in the last 6 months is being able to demonstrate the value of authenticity and being able to demonstrate the value of having an empathetic approach to your employees and having an empathetic approach to communication. That's been particularly true in Australia and New Zealand when looking at things like government and public health communication. And there's been this amazing display of different types of leadership and how effective that is at communicating, and all of those things really tie back into best practice. How you position your organization in the best way, how you bring your executive team and your spokespeople along on an amazing journey to be able to communicate in what is an incredibly intense situation. All of those things contribute to best practice, and ultimately any award is really about displaying best practice so that we can share it with everyone.
Yeah, agree. Definitely agree. Winning awards and good communication efforts do not necessarily choose any season, right? Whether it's pandemic or not, we're doing our best in general and across all organizations. I will pick up two terms from Ngairi. She mentioned authenticity and empathy. So specifically with what you mentioned, Ngairi, about our employees. So they're also part of our organizations, and we also measure. They're part of the measurement in general. So how has Scape, imbibed these two terms, Shirley? Authenticity and empathy. Your take on these terms?
Yeah. Okay. In fact, to start off, my team, they are all very young staff. And the reason why we hire young people, because obviously we know that they have a very good level of empathy, right? Because our target audience are also the youth. So for the youth, by the youth, and create programs, obviously they are more than, capable of echoing their sentiment. But again, looking at the young staff, they need training, they need tools, they need, certain proper guidance for them to understand what else media measurement. So this part about working with Prashant team for the last 2 years has actually proven to also help the team. They learn quite a fair bit, as I said, just like the hacking the new normal example that I shared, right, with the young graduating youth. They also picked up, the importance of why you need to study the social media organically, and then using natural language processing algorithm, how you actually do qualitative analysis by the data scientists like Arun, from your team again. Yeah, very good insights and very good teaching. So my staff also benefited, right? Yeah, they then understand that, oh, okay, this is what we meant by sentiment analysis and not the typical focus group that they usually go into. Right, for us at Scape, we have been doing like focus group for us to gather you to have an enclosed conversation, closed door conversation, to find out more about their needs, in a packs of not more than 20. We are capable of doing it. But how do you actually read and analyze and put in insights and actionable steps to all this feedback that we gathered from our youth during focus group? That's something that they wouldn't know. So they need the learning, and the learning, yeah, is indeed from the iCenter team. So with this four, our own team understanding the youth, they get very excited because they know that this a program that their peers will benefit, and then to layer it with a very good structure approach from the whole iCenter team to do media intelligence study, we have the right formula in that sense.
It's nice to know that you hire young ones because they takes one to know one. So
Yes,
they have the insights. They're the audience themselves,
that's
right?
right. That's right.
Alright. So empathy and authenticity. Sir John, we're a family mall. Family is our. When you go to SM Supermalls, it's always a complete family gathering. So these two terms, I'm sure, close to home. So empathy and authenticity. Your take?
Well, actually, that's very true. When we're asked right now, parang what is your strategy when it comes to recovery after the pandemic? One thing that we always say, and something that we will measure, right, is right now, kasi we are doing is really to work particularly together with the communities that we serve, right? We have shown the communities how much we are working together with them, how much we have helped them out, be they the tenants or be they actually even the population, right? The residents of the nearby towns and cities that where our malls are located. So with that, the whole strategy to really on the recovery is really something that revolves around how we work together with the communities and how we are not. And of course, there are a lot of communications there, from all the donation drives that we have done to the different CSR programs that um, we have instituted together with the new omni-channel strategy that we are looking at. I think the more important thing really is how also later on we will be able to see and measure that thing. So that's how we adapt the measurements there.
Thank you, Sir John. So I think Sayed is joining us at this point in time, so we'll throw him the next question.
Hi, everybody.
Hi there. Thank you for joining us.
So,
So
sorry. I apologize. I was late. I was pulled into another issues management meeting. Yes,
yeah, so crisis. So we'll live and breathe crisis, but through crisis we win awards, right, Sayed?
yes, that's true. Throw
So
me the question.
I'll throw you a question, I have your end so that it's going to be we need insights from your end. So we're talking about awards, right? So when we win awards, we usually gain international peer recognition. Like right now, our audiences are coming from different countries and markets because we recognize that you guys here who have recently won AMIC awards with Icentia are are excellent in communications. Said in with Plus Malaysia, is this part of the objectives from the get-go to win awards, or it just happens along the way? Your thoughts?
Um, the answer is no. It is a plan to win awards. We're not doing what we do to win awards,
Yeah.
but I guess the efficacy of measurement, the awards actually give us a sense of validification that what we have been doing, what we've been measuring, what we've targeted to achieve at the end of the day, that we're on the right track, right? So it's like, you do the work you need to do before your A levels, and when you get your marks, then that validates your hard work that you've done. So that's how we look at awards. It's not that we put a KPI that every year Plus must win an award. In fact, last year when we won the public relations, the Malaysian PR awards, um, it was our first time ever that we've actually put in for an award ceremony. And the judges told us actually the reason they chose us that we had measurement. So I think measurement is critical in any communications initiative. We can have a plan, we can put in a strategy, but if we do not measure whether we are heading towards the right path, because headwinds can come anywhere, right? And I think thank you to Icentia for putting us in. I think we were measured for last year, 2019. 2019 was the first year I joined Plus. And it was very turbulent because suddenly in the middle of the year, everybody wanted to buy us out, right? Everybody was, and even the old owners wanted to take back, right? So I think everybody realizes for the toll industries, tolls are always the punching bag for a lot of politicians, right? But how do we keep afloat? While we have the strategies and the initiatives that we put down, measurement to put in place measurement gives us a clearer idea that hey, that suggestion, that idea that we want to put across in our strategy is working. Or the most critical, if it's not working, where do we pivot, right? So that's how critical measurement is for us.
All right. So, thank you, sir. This time we'll take some questions from the audience. So, Marielle Grace Eclavea was asking, there are so many social media platforms where you need to make an impact. She's curious which of these platforms are the most important to you in terms of engaging with your audience, and which platform are you currently focusing on? Bobby Sayed, you can start.
Oh, okay. So I think you need to be very clear what your industry is. I think different platforms go well with different industries. But however, during this 1.5 years with Plus, what I have realized that FB is a lot of angry old men and women, right? LinkedIn seems to be kinder, more professional when you communicate with them. And of course, Instagram is one platform where you will get your millennials to respond to you. Now, of course, you also need to understand the organizational issues you face, right? So it's different for different organization. I think for Joachim, Shirley, Miss Crawford, I think our industries will require us to engage on different platforms, right? So depending, and I think what is critical is through those measurement that we get, we'll get a granular feel of who we're actually talking to, and that is very, very important, right? Just to share with you why the reason I was late is because we have this issue called insufficient balance, right? When Plus went into cashless transaction, it moved from cash where they pay and we give them a receipt to the touch and go card, right? So after a while, the touch and go card, they had what they call a smart tag. Now, what we've done is because in the early years there were no sufficient reload areas, we allowed for you to reload at the lane. Now that turned out into a monster that causes congestion. So with more reload lanes that we've placed, we've cut off that, right? So while we've cut off that, people start to make noise on social media. Oh, Plus is very cruel. You make us, you don't care for us. You make us walk to the reload kiosk, which is 100 meters away. And, so all these things, we start to gradually pick out who are saying what. And where does it normally come from? What sort of demographic and what sort of background are these individuals, right? If they're influencers, which part do they influence most? And the good thing about it, we are able to then engage them directly, and some we've turned into our advocates that we're able to communicate with them what is the real situation. So coming back again, measurement gives you that insight, that deep insight. It's like going on a date, right? You try to find out, what does the girl actually like? What sort of, does she like roses? Does she like carnations? Does she like red wine, white wine? So this is where we come from.
Nice
It's all
analogy.
relationship.
Nice analogy and measurements. So we'll just take one more question here. Award programs have from Ritzy Ronquillo. Miss Ritzy, hello. She's asking, award programs have begun to open their submission time of entries. Most award-winning giving bodies, are giving a category on COVID communication, both in terms of program and tools. And given that results and impacts are most valued and needed that purely outputs, given that months into a program are barely enough time usually to effect a lasting and positive change, what measurement can you advise? There's also a follow-up question. What should we be providing in our entry write-ups, and what should we focus on? So that's interesting. COVID communication entry. Uh, any thoughts there, Sir John? Especially that
Um,
we've been reading Stevie's, Amex.
well, I think that I would still go with no. I would still go with, as I said, the augmented things, the augmented research methodology that we are looking at right now. I think that it really still depends on the strength of the communication, how people receive the message, and again how they act after that, right? I think that is the way to see it. Yes, you're right. It's only been a few months. You're not going to say so. You will really have to see how it has settled. However, even if having said that, you can already see that whether there is stronger impact vis-a-vis competition, right, or with the competitors that you have today, you can already see some results already, maybe going all the way until the back half of until the balance of the year. Um, that alone is that I think is something that is going to be very interesting to see. You know, it's more really how they are going to act from what we have communicated to them, and I think we're set up for something like that. Maybe just one last, Chad, just to say something quickly about awards. And I know everybody has been talking about awards and all. For us, I think I share, like said, meaning to say that we don't really plan, how many awards we're going to win in the year. But what's more important is that when you win an award, it really says just one thing: that you've been able to serve your market really well, or even better than the rest, right? That's what I feel is what an award really means to a company, right? And to a marketing person as well.
Yeah, agree, Sir John. Another question here is, what can you advise in setting measurable objectives that would be the basis for tracking progress and citing results and impacts? Nairi, your thoughts, since you're the genius behind our entries here?
Um, I am a big advocate for looking at what the magic metric is of an organization and working backwards. Everyone's got one. It might be behavior change, it might be revenue, it might be, visitor numbers, it could be anything. Knowing what that is and how it is that you influence that, and then creating a measurement program that makes that link really clear. I think one of the things that's really easy is when objectives are described as measurable, you end up in those things like outputs, where it is just about really small things that are really about vanity. You want to start moving into those much larger questions. And for me, that's always trying to connect that to something that's much, much bigger. It sounds hard, but if you start with the hard stuff and work backwards, it's always much easier.
Agree on those. So we're a bit short of time. We're conscious of time here. So just as to end this very, very engaging webinar, just have one last question for all our panelists here. And this is your time to, give your input. So the prestige, as Sir John mentioned and Sayed mentioned, we're not really planning for awards. They're the cherry on top of all our efforts. So the prestige of winning an award is the culmination actually of our efforts of in-house teams with our partner agencies. And, it serves the validation of the quality of work of a well-executed campaign, initiative, or even project. What is your advice to our audience aspiring to have teams or even organizations like yours? Shirley, you might want to start?
I think, yeah, I'm totally on the same page as Syed and Sir John too. I mean, we are not here to really just win awards. We presented our problem statement to Prashant and team, right? I mean, this is a cycle that I think all of us will have to undertake. It will not just start and stop here, regardless of COVID-19. I think it's a cycle that we must constantly be doing, i.e., know what you're trying to find out in terms of your end user needs, go into this whole very important media monitoring, back to the whole, what would be the social media that I know that my Gen Z and millennial are very active on, is because, again, with the whole sentiment analysis exercise that we did with iSentia, I know that this year they are very much on TikTok. Right? The year before, there was no TikTok platform in that sense. And what are they saying on TikTok? What kind of content are they curating themselves? So these are all very, very important insights. But even if we do know that these are the content that they themselves are curating on TikTok, what would then actually translate into their aspiration? Because again, as I say, as a talent development company, to talent develop all this youth, we need to nurture them. So actionable insights from all these findings that we've gotten, to be able to give them that further support, give them that further boost, so that, there will be a happier next generation youth for Singapore. I think it's very important, especially for us. Singapore is really just a small country. To us, talent is everything. So yeah, it's very, very pivotal.
Said, I'm sure we would have wanted to have more time with you, but your thoughts on this one, advice to our audience?
Well, I think one of the key things is if you're in an organization, for measurement to actually be very precise, you need clarity from the top. Leadership is critical in terms of communication. If the leaders are very clear, your C-suite, your MD knows what they want to achieve at the end of the day, then it's very easy to chart your path. And it's very easy with the help of media intelligence agencies to help you put those Lego blocks of measurement in place.
Okay. Thank you, Sayed. Sir John, your thoughts on winning more awards with SM Supermalls?
Well, as I said, it's really about serving the customer in a much better fashion, right? And being very current with them. My only advice is very simple. I've had only one mantra ever since I started in marketing long ago. Okay, and that's really know your customer well, right? And in wanting to know your customer well, there are two things that need to be done. First is you have to be very, very observant. As a person, you have to be very, very observant. You have to watch behavior. You have to anticipate, know how they behave, right? But having said that as well, that is where measurement comes in, right? That is where research comes in, whether it's media, it's product research, whatever kind of research. Because from there, you will be able to generate that one very important insight that will lead to the opportunity and basically to a better service for your customer.
Thank you, Sir John. Nairi, let's wrap this together. On behalf of Isetia, your last few words for our audience.
My last few words are for anyone that is tuning into this webinar because you want to win awards. You have to measure. You won't win an award if you can't prove that what you did was successful and there was a clear logic as to why you did it, and it was based on evidence and it was based on research. I'm lucky enough to be a judge for a lot of PR awards in this part of the world. That is the first thing I am looking for any award. So make sure that you consider that when you're entering anything.
Thank you again, everybody. So measure, measure, measure. That's our mantra moving forward. Again, in behalf of Isentia, thank you to our panelists, of course, Nairi, Shirley, Syed, and of course, Sir John. Thank you very much to everyone who tuned in with us from start to finish. See you again in the next webinar of Isentia. Good afternoon, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.